Good morning, YouTube. We're back today working on the MC Crawler, and since I have to wait on some parts, and you know, the internet is a wonderful thing. It's allowed me to order a bunch of parts for this thing. Now I got to sit on my hands and wait for the UPS, the USPS, and the FedEx people to show up. And patience isn't my strong suit, so instead of sitting on my hands, this is what we're going after next. Now, the sheet metal on this thing is downright tired. It's got some dents, some dings. There's metal fatigue where the metal is coming apart after 70 some odd years, or almost 70 years. And the previous owner of this unit did a decent job of putting this back together. He's brazed it and welded it in various places to actually pull it back into where it's supposed to be, but a couple of days ago this thing looked horrible, and I've spent the last day or two with a hammer and dolly and an angle grinder and a wire wheel to get this to looking a heck of a lot better than it did. This whole front face looked like somebody went after it with a ball peen hammer, and I'm proud to say that it looks a heck of a lot more flat than it did a couple of days ago. It still isn't flat by any means, but it looks better. And you can see where there's seams and stuff here, and corners, and you know, spots where the curves stress the metal. There's a lot of little weld spots on here trying to keep it in one piece. And the sad part about this is that, you know, this side, actually this 70-year-old paint is adhered very, very well. I've found it very difficult to remove that old paint. And when you look at the back side of it, it's nothing but rust. The entire inside of this is rusted, and the same is true for the hood. The outside of the hood looks okay. I mean, it's still green. The underside of the hood, however, looks like this. It's all rust. So today we're going to try some experiments in rustoration. I'm going to try to remove all of the surface rust that I can, and then go after it with a wire wheel to get rid of the rest of the scale and stuff. And then I'm going to go and spray it with some stuff to hopefully stop that rust, because we don't want this thing rusting any more than it already has. So come along with us today and we get a little bit of work done here on the farm. Now, what I have here is 30% vinegar. This isn't vinegar you can buy at the grocery store. I had to go to our local lawn and garden and farm supply and get some 30% white vinegar. This stuff is pretty caustic, and when I spray it all over this rust, and then spray it all over this rust, and spray it all over this rust, and spray it over all this rust, in about 12 to 16 hours we ought to have a lot less rust. Now, I've been using this wire wheel and it's been good, but getting into all the corners and curves and everything that's on the inside of this, yeah, this is a nightmare for something like this. And I've been using the angle grinder. I've got a little angle grinder. I've been going after all these welds and making them flat, because honestly, some of these welds look like they were done by a dirt dauber, but at least it held it together. So we're going to start by pumping up this little bug sprayer, and then spraying it on, and then spraying it on some more. Now the reason why it's blue is we go and use this to kill weeds. And instead of using, chemicals, we use 30% vinegar with a little bit of blue dye. And the blue dye lets us see where we have sprayed this stuff. And we use this all over the farm for killing weeds. As long as you're going to have a sunny day, you spray this 30% vinegar on grass and weeds, let it sit out in the sun for a day, it's dead and it's gone. Man, I hate the smell of vinegar, but this is the cheapest and easiest way to go and remove surface rust. And you don't really want to let it dry off. You want to keep it wet and spray it, keep it wet, spray it and keep it wet. And who knows, in about 12-16 hours we'll be able to go and take a power washer and be able to rinse most of this rust off of here. At least that's the plan. And here we have our hood. This is the underside of it. Parts of it are still green, but most of it is surface rust. It's not real deep pitted rust, but it's surface rust. And this vinegar trick ought to make a dent in it. Man. God, I hate the smell of that stuff. But it works. Now again, I want to reiterate, the blue dye in here is to see where we've sprayed it on the grass, and it washes right off with rain, rinses right off with water, so the power washer will take the dye right off of here. And now we got to let it sit for a while and keep my fingers crossed that this stuff does what it's supposed to do. Now again, I want to reiterate, I'm not trying to do some kind of complete restoration of this, and I'm not trying to make a show quality show tractor out of this. What I'm really trying to do is stop the rust, because if I stop the rust, somebody else will be able to enjoy this piece of equipment years later. We got people driving by. Anyway, we'll be back in a little while and see what this looks like. And you got to take a scrub brush to it every once in a while. Since this radiator cover has the most flaky rust on the back side of it, now that it's been a while, I'm going to go and hit it, try to knock a bunch of that stuff off, and then go hit it with some more vinegar. I'm not just taking off rust, I'm taking off decades of paint as well. I'm using the most aggressive power washer tip that I've got, and it's very satisfying to see all this rust literally melt away and disappear. and see bare metal underneath. It's not a paint stripper, but it sure is taking off the rust, and it helps. Well, that sure made a difference. I went and blew off a lot of rust, and I went and blew off a lot of paint. So in places there's bare metal, and I've gone and set it up on the table over there and shot it with some more vinegar to try to tack it some more. Now we've got the hood, and we'll see how we do with this. Well, that helped. I went and knocked off, I'd say about 90% of the powdery, flaky rust, and the stuff that's left is pretty well adhered to the metal. And it looks like I went and removed either 2 or 3 layers of previous paint, because the paint was coming off because I'm using a really aggressive tip. Now we're going to go and set them up and hit them with some more vinegar. I think I need to call this the Rustoration video, because yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. I'm going to hit all this with some more vinegar, let it sit for a bit, keep it wet, come back every 15 minutes or so and hit it with some more, and go and power wash it again. And then I'm going to take a wire wheel to the crusty stuff and see if I can get rid of that. You can see some of that sticker disappeared with the power washer. And I know I'm doing some good, because the what do you call it, the radiator cover here is already rusting. So when we go and hit it again, we need to go hit it with some baking soda and water to stop that chemical reaction. Now we got to let it sit for a while. Now we're going to rinse these down, and I'm going to go after them with a wire wheel and see how much more rust I can get off. Well, looks like we got some more rust and crud off of them. Won't be too long, we'll be ready for a little bit of primer, I think. At least that's what I'm hoping. Now we're going to knock a little more rust off with a wire wheel, make everything smooth. Man, yeah, this is taking a while. I need to go take a break.